So thank you for joining us today. We know you have lots of choices in this time of mixed and hybrid and virtual and blah, blah, blah. And so we're thrilled that you decided to choose to spend some time of yours with us today. And we continue our look in how we tend the garden of our thoughts and how we must tend it, because otherwise it gets overgrown with weeds or undesirable thoughts, which must manifest as undesirable experiences. So Thursday this week, I was physically weeding my side patio and the path between my front door and my carport. And I don't mind a few volunteer plants. I'm really, I'm not a tidy, orderly person that way. But when they start taking over and they start getting in the way, and they start encroaching on my physical space, well, I have to do something with them. And you might be the same way, or you might be more tidy than me. I don't know, it doesn't matter. Each one of us does our own way of being. And we know that our thinking creates our experiences. And it's the same as pulling those weeds, getting our path clear so we can move in the direction that we wish to go. And, because we're humans, we're not necessarily likely to catch those erroneous thoughts when they're small and innocuous. And so sometimes we have to wait until they get to be big and ugly in habits, and then we deal with them. So we're not wired necessarily to do things the easy way. Okay, that's just how it is. And we can learn to pay attention sooner. That is part of what I think we get to learn when we're down here having the life that we're having. So when Reverend Jeff Hargis was here and spoke for us 3 weeks ago, he sent a bio in for our advertising. And I was tickled to see in his informal introduction that he came to New Thought the same way I did, from Richard Bach's Illusions. He wrote that his dad gave him a copy. For me, it jumped off a bookshelf in a bookstore in front of me and landed on the floor. And I thought, huh. And I didn't know until much later that Richard Bach studied as a Christian Scientist. Whether he was a practicing one or not one, I don't know. But I suspect those early lessons as a Christian Scientist stayed firmly planted in his consciousness, in his hidden garden, because of the way he told the stories he did in Illusions 1, and the way he told the story of his recovering from what should have been a fatal airplane crash in Illusions 2. So this idea of controlling our thoughts and managing our experience by managing our thoughts is becoming ubiquitous in culture. And that's fabulous, because it does change the way humans experience their reality, or at least it can. So Dr. Ernest Holmes, in his biography, there was a story told of his early experience with organized religion. And there was a mixture of two things. His mother had a very, very, very strong belief, which was a little atypical for the times. And he attended a Congregationalist church on Sundays. His parents wanted him to have that experience with his 6 other brothers. And his mother didn't believe in hell. She didn't believe in eternal damnation. She didn't believe in sin. So anytime the minister would start preaching hellfire and brimstone, the family got a second lecture on the way home on why the minister was mistaken. And then Ernest's next experience with organized religion was a Christian Science church. In fact, it was the mother church, the one founded by Mary Baker Eddy, the center of the universe in the Christian Science world in Boston. He met a woman in the Learn How to Speak Better class that he was taking, who was a reader for the church, and she invited him to come see what they did. and he loved the teaching. And he incorporated several ideas from the Christian Science teaching into his construction of the teaching, the philosophy that we work with. This one God that David sang about a little bit ago, and the allness of soul and spirit, and that humans are in God's image and likeness, and that true spiritual understanding does have the possibility of casting out evil. Christian scientists believe that evil is unreal. They believe that matter is unreal. And we're not going into that today. And more on that in a minute. But Ernest also took several of the other beliefs from Christian Science and adapted them in a way that made more sense to him. One, the power of affirmative prayer has the ability to facilitate an experience of healing and a control of conditions. This is something that is commonly worked with in New Thought and sort of a cornerstone of the teachings of the science of mind. A second thing that Ernest modified from the Christian Science, this notion that mind or divine mind or God is in each of us, and that we have the option to have that mind operating actively in us at all times. And we have the option not to. And we have the power and authority to think and pray and act for the good of ourselves and for all. There's a whole bunch more stuff, but that'll do for now. What didn't work for him from Christian Science was Mary Baker Eddy's very rigid point of view that there was only one right way and she had it. And he wasn't alone in moving through or moving on or moving away from the Christian Science Church. Emma Curtis Hopkins also, well, he didn't get excommunicated because he never joined, but she got excommunicated because she had some different ideas about what her relationship with the divine could be. And they differed from what Mary Baker Eddy thought. And so Mary Baker threw her out. And Emma then went on to teach a lot of the founders of other New Thought teachings or philosophies. So back to Richard Bach's illusions. In chapter 8, Richard said, "Don, I will grant you that this life can be interesting or dull, or whatever we choose to make it. But even in my brilliant times, I have never been able to figure out why we're here in the first place. Tell me something about that." Well, Donald Shimoda, like any good messiah, doesn't answer the question, but instead he immediately suggests that they go watch a movie that's playing at a local movie theater. The movie and the experience of watching the movie is the answer to Richard's question. Richard doesn't understand, of course, so he has to be coaxed and prompted a little bit. The answer to the question of why we're here is twofold. We're here for fun, for enjoyment, for delight, and we're here for learning. Fun. Life is for experiencing and expressing joy and love and all of those other delicious God qualities that we all appreciate. And then learning. When we need to make adjustments or corrections, when we need to weed our garden, we need to adjust our thought processes. We need to change our actions. We need to rethink how we accept what is the capital T truth for us, especially when they're different from the commonly held beliefs of the collective unconscious. Those weeds or erroneous beliefs in our hidden garden are what we have to tend. We have to remove, we have to eliminate, we have to dig up, we have to kill if we want a different life experience. And I suspect that most of you have access to this book, Richard Bach's Illusions, on your physical bookshelf, because I'm not unique and Jeff is not unique for having this be a seminal book in our process of becoming a New Thought user, a believer, a teacher, because it's so clear in describing how we control and impact our own life experience. So go pick it up off your bookshelf or Kindle. And if you don't have it, you might want it. There's a lot of our teaching in this little book. Now, Dr. Holmes did not say our experiences are illusions, like Mary Baker Eddy said. He said they are as real as they need to be, for us to pay attention to them and to change our minds about them. Because only when we change our minds about them can we change our experience of them. In one of the many places Holmes expresses this idea is The Science of Mind, page 55, paragraph 2. He's describing what someone having an unwelcome experience could choose to do to have a different experience. He wrote, "Right now, they must stop and declare that these images of limitation are neither person, place, nor thing, that they have no power, personality, or presence, and there is no real law to support them. They, the human, do not believe in them, the false ideas, which are the present experience, and the false ideas cannot operate. The humans are free from their influence forever, as long as we continue to remember that we have control over how we choose to experience our lives." Ernest continues, "Then they begin to fill their thought with the idea of faith, the expectancy of good, and the realization of plenty. They sense and mentally see right action in their life. They put their whole trust in the law of good, and it becomes very real to them as they definitely speak it into being. They, the humans, deny everything that contradicts their realization of the truth." It sounds simple, right? But I didn't say it was easy. It is possible for every single one of us to weed our mental gardens of all those undesirable experiences that show up in our minds and our lives. This is why we teach spiritual mind treatment and make such a big deal out of it. And this is why we teach affirmations and meditation and visioning as spiritual practices. These are our primary tools to create the lives we choose. This is also why Power of Your Word is one of my favorite classes, because it makes us see. Okay, it doesn't make us do anything. It lets us see, it allows us to see, and it reinforces that spiritual truth that is behind those experiences that seem unpleasant or undesirable. This is also why we have licensed prayer practitioners like Sharon and like Maria is studying to become. And we encourage people to do a web prayer, to have a prayer partner, to submit a prayer, to talk about their experiences and what they would like to see instead. Because when you're in the middle of an ugly experience, it's really hard to remember the truth about yourself. So I want to take a quick second and talk about this experience of evil. We've had a request to have a class about that, and we're gonna. But there's a lot of juicy discussion to be had. And so next Sunday afternoon, after services, if there's interest, we'll do it. We can't do it today. We already have a full suite of Sunday afternoon activities for today. So what's evil? And why do we have an experience of someone or some situation or something as evil? I'll give you some clues, some food for thought from Dr. Holmes' writings in The Science of Mind. On page 39, paragraph 4, we must instill in our minds the fundamental proposition that good is without bounds. We must get this concept rather than continuing to think that there is a power of evil as opposed to the power of good. We experience good and evil because we perceive a presence of duality rather than unity. Boy, that's chewy, right? Do I see the world as a duality, either this or that, or do I see it as a unity where there is only good and everything else we have made up? Once again, it's possible, it's not easy. Page 109, paragraph 4 to 110, paragraph 1. We must know definitely and consistently that the universe is for us and not against us. But some will say, the universe is not for us. Look at the evil, the limitation, the lack, the physical pain and anguish of the human race. We shall have to learn that evil is neither person, place, nor thing of itself, but is an experience we're allowed to have because of our divine individuality, until through our negative experiences, we learn to use the law affirmatively, to cooperate with it, and thus enjoy its full benefit. The universe is foolproof. It doesn't say we can have what we want. It says what we can have, what we can take. While at the same time, we must expect to experience the logical result of our thought and action, be it good or what we call evil. Foolproof, fail-safe. What a wicked thing, right? Page 457, paragraph 3. False experience will continue until the lesson is learned, until the soul turns from that which hurts to its greater good. The spirit of a human is of like nature to the spirit of God, and it is impossible for the spirit of God to be in darkness. And then from Living the Science of Mind, page 354 and 355, the origin of evil is in the human mind, and the belief in the devil, hell, purgatory has its origin in the human mind and nowhere else. This belief must be erased from the mind. We must come to know that there can be no ultimate evil. We must have an assurance, this is the hard part, right? We must have an assurance that evil will disappear from our experience in such degree as we no longer feed it in our imagination or through our acts create situations that encourage it. So what's evil? It's a name we call an experience we're having. Or, and I don't like this any more than you will, an expectation that we have that we believe our experience should be different than it is. So do you remember in Foundations class, we had an entire class, number 6, on the unreality of evil. It was week 6. I know that most of you have taken Foundations, so you can go back and look at your class materials and review it if it helps you wrap your mind around this. The experience of evil in our lives is the source of big weeds in our garden. And it will disappear from our experience when we quit feeding it, when we quit believing in it, when we quit putting it in our imagination and telling ourselves those stories about ourselves and about others, and when we quit enacting it. I don't know if it's good news or bad news. We don't arrive. It's a process. We keep working at it and working it. And the more consistently we work it, the better we are at actually delivering for ourselves the lives that we want. So some of you know that I spent 65 hours in the hospital earlier this month when I took my first Sunday off in 25 months. Yeah, right. Boy, there's a story. And back in December, I twisted my ankle on my first less than 48-hour vacation in 2 years. So who needs to learn a lesson here? Well, early Thursday evening this week, I pulled some muscles in my back while I was reaching for a book. Thursday night, when I was lying in the bed, alternating ice and heat on my back, wondering what weedy thoughts I needed to pull, And as I drifted off to sleep, I asked myself the question, what am I not seeing that wants to be known? What am I missing? What weed am I not seeing? And what came to me in the night was that I would benefit from changing the way I think and what I do in my present interaction with life. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but I have some ideas. And so the board and I will talk about that. I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. This is not my see you bye story. It's not that at all. But I have some things I need to change for my health and for my ability to lead and be the spiritual leader of this community. And it's useful for me to kind of have this experience in public, if I will say it that way, because I'm not any different than you. We each get to weed our garden, and the weeds keep coming, and we get to keep dealing with them. That's just how it works. So I want to close with a story from Ram Dass, from his small book, How Can I Help? A big, tough samurai went to see a little monk. Monk, he said, in a voice accustomed to instant obedience, teach me about heaven and hell. The monk looked up at the mighty warrior and replied with utter disdain, teach you about heaven and hell? I couldn't teach you about anything. You're dirty, you smell, your blade is rusty. You're a disgrace to the samurai class. Get out of my sight, I can't stand you. The samurai got furious. He shook, he got all red in the face. He was speechless with rage. He pulled out his sword and raised it, preparing to slay the monk. The monk said, that's hell. The samurai was overwhelmed. The compassion and surrender of this little man who had offered his life to teach him, to show him hell. He put his sword away and was suddenly peaceful. The little monk said, and that's heaven. Each one of us creates our heaven and hell by what we believe and what we reinforce and what we allow to continue to exist in our experience. And we have choices about that. We can't necessarily control what happens to us, but we can always control how we see it, how we engage with it, how we interact with it, and how we view it. And in doing that, we move ourselves from hell back into heaven. Do that. Bless yourself and bless us all. Thank you. So I want to move into the prayer. And we pray affirmatively around here. So if I've said anything that's useful to you, hold that in your mind while I speak the words. I celebrate this opportunity to remember that the gift already has been given, that one life, that one mind, that one whole and holy presence, that one love and joy and peace and power already lives in, as and through me and through all beings. And each one of us has the choice, has the opportunity, has the ability to see that and act that way when we choose it. So I celebrate that awareness of the ability to live in heaven now as available to each and all. That ability to see life as wondrous and joyous and delightful now. And I know that each one has all the skills they need, all the ability to access that mind and access those teachings and that support they need in order to have that experience of heaven on earth now. Celebrating this opportunity that each one already has to keep the weeds down, to live the life of their choosing. I celebrate this life and the space in it for me and for all to see life as joyful and beautiful and lovely. Relaxing into the words, I let them be. And so it is.